Good day, friends at Salem Lutheran. It is the week of October 18th, and I greet you with our messages for this week and a short little devotional before I take off for Washington, D.C. with my grandson. I'll be gone from Wednesday through Wednesday, and if you need any emergencies, John Snyder over at St. Stephen's is always willing to fill in, and Debbie Lee, our parish nurse, is the first person to call. And Nixon will be joining us next week. Pastor Nixon from Tanzania. I got to know him through his work in the agricultural world, and he served some time in that capacity in Iringa and came over to our synod several years ago and spent some time, preached at our congregation. Wonderful pastor. I hope that you have a chance to talk to him. Maybe sit down, have a little coffee after the meeting or something like that. So, and that is the next subject. October 24th is a very important meeting for our congregation. Going to stay in the sanctuary. I will be gone during the meeting, but I'll look forward to hearing what the decisions are. The first decision will be to change our constitution from a 9-member to a 6-member call committee. We can do this constitutional change because of a provision in the ELCA Constitution that can only be accomplished going 9 to 6, not any other number, because that is what the ELCA template is. If we chose to go to another number, we'd have to wait a whole entire year to do that, which would be difficult with the upcoming call committee being put together. And then we will also elect the call committee at that meeting too. Shouldn't take very long. Hope it'll go smoothly. And bring your questions. A resolution will be brought forward to the congregation to make it clear, a little explanation, and then you will have your opportunity to ask questions and then vote on it. So hope that you can join us for that day. I've got some faith formation events coming up with our young people, so I hope that you'll join in some of those. I have a game night coming up. You are more than welcome. We have cleanup day on the Saturday, October 23rd. That's this coming Saturday from 9 to 12. And hope that you are able to use your gifts and talents, whether you like to garden or clean or whatever the nature of your help would be. It would be very much appreciated. Just show up. You don't have to sign up in advance for that. Winter outerwear for Moreland Elementary is being collected, and you'll see the donation box down by the elevator. Very important ministry for those with winter coming up, needing some clothes. Love in a Ziploc bag, another ministry opportunity that's being done through our Faith Formation group. Pam Tallman is our connection. Pam, of course, is a member of Salem, and her sons go to confirmation. Sam was confirmed a couple of years ago. Jake is still there, so I hope that you will find ways to help with that project. Give Pam a call if you have any questions. November 6th is a chance to give blood from 9 to 2 at Salem. Thanks for all the help with the scholarships. Your generosity is so appreciated by the folks in Magomi and in Guatemala. You probably don't realize how impactful your help is. Speaking of that, stewardship campaign, prayerfully consider your giving to Salem Lutheran. We're focused on Jeremiah's text about having a plan for us, and I think that's a good theme for Salem Lutheran coming in the future as you get ready to call your new pastor. So we ask that you'll be receiving a mailing, and you'll receive your pledge cards like you do every year, and we'll ask that you bring those in on October 31st. If you are unable to attend, certainly mail them in, drop them off at the office, take a picture of them and email them in. Whatever way works, we'd appreciate getting those. And the sooner we get those, it really does make it easy for the council to figure out a budget for next year. So please try to get those in as soon as possible. So let's talk about it. We began our new sessions on Let's Talk About It. The Nurturing Board has asked that we kind of continue our conversation concerning the covenant. We went to a lot of work to put that covenant together and signed it. Talked about it last week at on the sermon, and I think it's a very important thing to keep in front of us. And it's not just a document for Salem. This document, I would be confident and proud to show this to other churches, and we have even shared that with other churches. So you did a great job with this, and I think it's something that every congregation could learn through the work that you have done. But they've asked that we continue talking about it through the subject of conflict resolution. And conflict resolution, of course, conflict always comes about. There's no way to get around conflict. But how do we resolve it is the real question. And I've been using Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication as kind of the springboard for our sessions together. And I found that he's quite insightful. And in fact, as we had our first conversation around session 1, we actually found out and discovered how theological this is, as we started sharing stories about parables and saying things like, well, that sounds like that parable, that sounds like this parable. So some of the astute theologians who showed up at that session were able to make those connections immediately. And I'm going to use a text here just momentarily that I think relates to that as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges is we don't have a great deal of good models for healthy communication. You just look around us. You think of the coach who yells at the player, belittles the player, or the politicians who belittle each other. We have a very violent form of communication, and it oftentimes uses a very judgmental approach. Jesus says, "Judge not, yet lest you be judged." We know that text very well. But how in the world do we approach a conversation that way? Think about how we all of a sudden judge somebody by their conversation or their deeds based upon our values. For instance, my neighbor is a neatnik. She cleans the house. I think she cleans it every day. I think they could really eat off the floors. And she loves doing it. She might call me a slob. No, I don't think my house is that dirty, but compared to hers, it is. That would be the same thing as me calling her a neat freak. We've made a value judgment on one another. That's not helpful for the conversation. A more helpful thing would be, why do you like cleaning your house? What is it that is so important? Perhaps it was the way you were raised. Perhaps it's the opposite way you were raised. But to enter into that conversation, to ask the question and not judge, but truly care about the person that we're conversing with. And so I'm going to read from a text in the New Testament that you're all very familiar with. I used it on the day we met, so those of you who were there will say, oh, I know what he's going to use. And it is one that we normally hear at weddings. Paul's words are so general and so generic, but so insightful that it has caught on to all relationships. But Paul was writing to a church in Corinth that was under conflict. They were having a lot of difficulties. And if you read the whole book, you'll discover some of the difficulties were pretty severe. But here, plopped in the middle of this, right after this long chapter on the gifts of ministry, encouraging everybody to use their gifts, he starts with this chapter. Now, I'm going to do something a little different with it, since most of us have heard it in its regular form from the RSV, NRSV, King James, whatever. So I am going to read it from our children's Bible, the Spark Bible. And I was happy to see that they don't do all the Bible in the Spark Bible, but they do several highlighted texts. And so I'm going to read to you their version of 1 Corinthians 13, Paul's letter to those Corinthians. Paul's friends in Corinth had lots of good ideas, but sometimes they forgot what was most important: love. Paul wanted to help them remember. Paul said, if I use words that everyone understands, but don't have love, I am just a clanging bell or a booming drum making noise. But if I teach people about God, know what will happen tomorrow, know everything there is to know, and can figure out mysteries of the world, but I do not know about love. None of these other things I know matters. If I sell everything I have and give the money to the poor, but don't have love, I have nothing, nothing at all. Love is easygoing and kind. It never wants what it can't have. It doesn't brag. It's not rude. It's not selfish. It doesn't get angry. And it always forgives. Love is happy with the truth. Love always protects, trusts, and hopes. Love doesn't give up. It never fails. All the things we know and all the things we have will go away someday, but God's love will never go away. Every day that we grow older, we learn more and more. Today, we only know a tiny bit about God's love. But someday, we'll know all there is to know about it. Paul ended his letter by telling the people of Corinth that love is the most important thing they have. Paul said, until the time you know everything about God's love, you have three things to remember: faith, hope, and love. The most important of these things is love. And I think it's that approach that we want to use in our conversations with others. It's so easy to make an evaluation, to think we know what the other person is thinking, or to judge what they are thinking. And it also works the other way around. We must be responsible for our own reactions as well. Do we say things because we think somebody wants us to say them, or they want to hear what we have to say? Do we judge them because we think that they're looking for a particular answer? Rosenthal will encourage us to speak clearly, plainly, and reflect our needs. When we set up the judgment, we set up a situation where I'm right and you're wrong. And so we want to stop our conversation at that point and to talk about what is it that we can understand from the other person. What is it that is important that they need as well. So, 1 Corinthians 13, love is the most important thing, and it's basically the old cliche: put yourself in the other person's shoes for a moment and ask, what is it they're really saying? Not by guessing, but by asking. Hey, thanks for joining me this week. I hope you guys have a good week with Nixon. I'm sure he'll have a wonderful message. Be still and know the Lord is our God. November 8th will be our next session for Let's Talk About It. I hope you will join me in the fellowship hall on that evening. Thanks.